I want to close out this series by talking about the students, some of the kids. And I wanted to do this part last because I really wanted to lay the foundation that the administrators and the teachers were just as bad, just as horrible. And you can already tell I'm holding back a lot of stories. Like, I haven't talked about any of the parents that got at me. I haven't talked about any of the other fights and things that where I was beat up and that kind of thing. Like, things that, again, um, let's talk about the kids. So let's compare the kids at Alma Heights Christian Academy to San Francisco Christian School. So Alma Heights Christian Academy was a lot of privileged kids, 80%, if not more, white. And these were the rich kids who were handed everything in life, didn't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, didn't have to really work for anything, but their parents were wealthy, so that's why they were at the school. And then at San Francisco Christian, on the other hand, these were more inner city kids. Literally, white people were less than 10%. So it was like a complete opposite. Majority, I want to say probably Latino was the largest, actually, but huge Black, Latino, and to a smaller extent, like Filipino Asian population at San Francisco Christian. And again, these were more inner city kids. So what's interesting is because what was interesting is that even though the kids at San Francisco Christian were significantly less privileged, were significantly less advantaged than the ones at Alma Heights, these were the ones that were always bragging about the Jordans and how much money their parents made. And it's like, I don't say this like to be mean, but it's like a lot of these people, they lived like above stores. Like, their parents did not own homes, you know. Like, I'm not saying this to brag or to be mean, but like some of these kids, I know for a fact, like, you know, their whole family lived in a room type shit. Okay, so these flexings, it was so weird because, like, again, at Alma Heights, people weren't bragging about how much money or the brand name shoes or whatever, but at San Francisco Christian, where y'all don't got shit, that's all you're talking about. So that's one comparison I want to make between the two. And I've already talked about some of the really mean things that, like, the email account that was created. I've talked about the times when I've been jumped or when I was, like, tackled. So one time, Corey Fong and Cameron Ciano. Corey was the biggest bully, was one of the biggest, I would say, physical bullies of mine, because he was a bigger guy, and he would like lunge at me, he would tackle me. And one day during PE, I got my revenge. So we were playing basketball, and then we were running laps, and him and Cameron were trying to get me. So I picked up a ball and I threw it at his head, and I just remember the ball hitting him and boom. It was so gratifying. It was hilarious. I mean, they chased me. They were pissed and fuming. The two of them were like chasing me. I went to get the teacher. But that was one of the most amazing, gratifying moments, because this guy made my life miserable. Constantly calling me a faggot, constantly picking on me. And all I wanted, at the end of the day, all I wanted was to make friends and like fit in. And another thing that happened was that another student, Joseph Gayton, and I were friends. Joseph is also now gay. Neither of us were at the time, but we were constantly, relentlessly teased for like being together and for being a couple. And it was more like we were the two like sensitive kids who kind of found each other. Like, I swear to God, that's all it was. I wasn't the least bit attracted to this guy. I promise you, I wasn't attracted to a single man until after 18. Okay, that I could like admit. Like, I was so busy trying to get into college and study, I didn't have time for any of that. So these kids, they started this whole campaign where they befriended him so that they made him part of their circle so that he rejected me. And I remember in the hallways passing him up, and he told me, he's like, I've wanted this my whole life. He's like, I'm finally popular, Abraham. Aren't you happy for me? And I was like, I was your best friend. And you know what? I literally met Joseph on the very first day of school. So because his last name was Gayton and mine was Curry, um, he sat he sat really close to me. So remember Corey Fong? So he had his mother's maiden name first, and so that's why he wasn't in between us. But Joseph Gayton sat directly behind me, and that's how we became friends. I remember on the very first day of school, I asked him a question, and he said, "Oh, I don't know. I'm new here too." I was like, "Oh, perfect. I'm new here too." So that was immediately my friend. And anyway, that really hurt. Sorry. I'm going to jump to San Francisco Christian School because even though I was only there 1 year, and even though I actually had a better time at San Francisco Christian and I did make a couple friends, these kids were in many ways worse than they were at Alma Heights Christian Academy. So there was Timothy Landicho, who always relentlessly called me gay, would make fun of me for being germophobic, would say like, "Oh my God," like would literally go like that, like, "Oh my God, Abraham." Timothy Landicho is now out and proud and very, very, very gay. Then there was the Nigerian girl who literally referred to me as, "Oh, that faggot, this faggot, that faggot," and got pregnant and disappeared. Christina, yeah, who what might be watching this because I know that we follow each other. Did you think that I'd forget that you also exclusively referred to me as a faggot? And as a matter of fact, you accused me of having a crush on Danny because I liked the song that he had on his Facebook or MySpace profile. I sincerely hope that you're raising your daughter to be better than you, Christina, because I never forgot, and you thought I did. Denisha, who also called me a faggot, and all these other people in the class who picked on me. I've named the ones who hurt me the most and whose names I remembered, but all I know is that I am so happy, so happy that my parents took a look at their finances and decided to put me back into public school because my time at private school was miserable. It was miserable. It was awful. I'm shocked I didn't try to hurt myself. That's all I can say. I would highly, uh, not opposite of recommend, putting your kid in a private school.